Now that Luka Doncic has played a few games for the Lakers, the initial shock of that trade has quickly turned into depression for Mavs fans. How did the Mavericks give up a 25-year-old generational talent for a return barely worth more than your average all-star? In fact, let's actually break down a few recent trades that have happened for high-profile players. We're gonna go a step further though. We'll be breaking down the raw value of trades and converting players into a number of picks worth their value. So with this in mind, let's establish how much the Lakers really had to pay for Luka Doncic first.
Listen, Luka's a big-time player, 25 years old, haven't even reached his prime yet, and he's done some amazing shit in our league already. I'm happy to have him. LA's happy to have him, and it's still a little bit surreal, honestly, to be honest.
The trade package included Anthony Davis, and let's say he's worth about 5 first-round picks. It also included a single first-round pick and Max Christie. Essentially, Luka got traded for the value of 6 first-round picks. This seems like a lot at first, but when you think about who it is, Luka, one of the most popular players in the league who's 25 and just led a team to the finals as the guy and the conductor of the entire offense. This trade isn't just underwhelming, it's outright embarrassing. By any reasonable measure, Luka should have commanded a return of at least 8 to 9 first-round picks in total value. Instead, Dallas managed to sell off one of the greatest offensive engines in NBA history for a deal that wouldn't even crack the top 5 biggest trades of the last 5 years. Let's break this disaster down and compare it to some recent deals that somehow demanded just as much or far more. In 2022, the Timberwolves sent a ridiculous package for Rudy Gobert. The trade included Walker Kessler, who at the time was worth about a first-round pick, 4 first-round picks, a first-round swap, and 3 serviceable rotation players. At the time, analysts and fans alike ridiculed Minnesota for giving up so much for a defensive specialist with limited offensive ability. Gobert is an elite rim protector, but his impact falls off hard in the playoffs when teams exploit his lack of perimeter defense, something that's, only been known since Rudy entered the league. And yet, Minnesota basically paid more for him, around 7 first-round picks in total value, than the Lakers did for Luka. That alone should tell you how poorly the Mavericks handled this trade. What makes this even worse is that Gobert, despite his reputation, hasn't drastically improved the Timberwolves' ceiling at all. They've been competitive, but they're far from a title contender, and they'll probably never be one while Rudy's on the team. Imagine giving up an entire future for a non-superstar, then realizing the Lakers just landed Luka Doncic for even less. Then there's the case of Mikal Bridges, a fantastic 3-and-D wing, but nowhere near a franchise-altering player. The Knicks just traded 5 first-round picks, a pick swap, and a lot else, so let's say 7 first-round picks in total value for him. The immediate reaction to the deal was mixed. Bridges is a great player, but does he really move the needle that much? Even the biggest Bridges supporters would struggle to argue that he's in the same ballpark as Luka Doncic. And yet, the Mavericks let the Lakers acquire an MVP candidate for a package that couldn't match Bridges' price tag. If Bridges is worth 7 firsts, then Luka should have commanded double that. Bridges sits on the 3-point line and launches threes. Luka commands entire offenses. The two aren't even comparable. Instead, the Mavericks walked away with an aging star, a bench player, and a single pick. There's no way to justify that level of mismanagement. If you want to see what an actual superstar trade looks like, look no further than James Harden's move to Brooklyn in 2021. The Nets paid 4 first-round picks, 4 pick swaps, and multiple young players. So let's say at least 10 first-round picks in total value to land Harden. At the time, it was considered a fair price for an MVP caliber offensive engine. Now let's compare that to Luka. Harden was 31 years old when the Nets acquired him, already on the wrong side of his prime. Luka is just 25, with his best years ahead of him. If Brooklyn paid that much for a player who was out the door in a year and a half and was already aging, how is it possible that Dallas got only a single extra pick alongside Anthony Davis? Luka should have been valued even higher than Harden, yet the return barely registers as a blockbuster deal. The DeJounte Murray trade is another example of an overpay that somehow rivals the Luka deal. Atlanta gave up 3 first-round picks and a swap, so let's say 3.5 first-round picks in total value. For Murray, a player who, while talented, is honestly kind of a basketball terrorist. He's never been in the MVP conversation or even close, and somehow teams just get worse when they acquire Murray. The move was, of course, criticized at the time, with many questioning if Murray was worth that kind of investment. Fast forward to today, and the trade looks even worse. Atlanta had to flip Murray for less than they paid. Meanwhile, the Mavericks let an MVP candidate, a player capable of single-handedly dragging a team to the finals, go for barely more than what San Antonio got for DeJounte Murray. The optics of this trade are terrible, and the basketball logic is even worse somehow. The bottom line, the Mavericks fumbled one of the most valuable trade assets the league has ever seen. Luka Donic should have been worth a historic haul, something rivaling or exceeding what the Thunder got for Paul George. If the Mavs approached this correctly, they could have loaded themselves up like OKC did a few years ago. Instead, they settled for a deal that doesn't even clear the bar set by top-tier role players like Mikal Bridges. This trade isn't just bad, it's the kind of move that can set a franchise back for a decade or even longer. Luka was supposed to be the guy in Dallas, the player you can build a championship team around, and they were doing that. Instead, they shipped him off for pennies on the dollar though. If you ever needed proof that front office incompetence can tank a franchise's future overnight, this trade is Exhibit A.